Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a simple Magic 8 Ball app. The Magic 8 Ball is a classic toy which predicts the future or gives you the answer to a question by randomly selecting an answer from its multiple choice. So let's begin. We're going to use a template that I've created to get ourselves started. So I've logged into App Inventor. I'm going to go to Project, Import Project, and I've downloaded the 8 ball template already. Click on OK, and that will upload and appear in my project menu, and then it will load on screen. So the 8 ball app is quite simple. We have a few elements to the app. So we have 4 objects. We have a button here which the user will click to ask a question and to make the 8 ball give a response. We have an instruction label which you can't quite see all of at the moment, but it will sort itself out when we run the app. We're going to use this later on, a text-to-speech engine, and we're also going to use this image timer. What this does is when we click the button it will change the picture, and then after 2 seconds it will change it back. So we've got this little 2-second timer. The button itself has 2 pictures, so these have been uploaded already. So this is Magic 8 Ball 1, Magic 8 Ball 2. Magic 8 Ball 1 is the top side of the Magic 8 Ball, and if I just change this temporarily, Magic 8 Ball 2 is the underside of the Magic 8 Ball where a message appears. So at the start of the app it's going to have that one, and then we're going to flip it over and get the answer. So let's now go and have a look at the code. So here's the code for the app. At the moment it's got 3 sections to it. Each of these 3 sections has got a comment attached to it which explains what it does. So I'm going to talk through these very quickly. This block, what this does is it defines a set of answers that the Magic 8 Ball can use. At the moment it has 2, yes certainly and definitely not. It puts this list of answers or text strings into a variable called answers. So anywhere in my app I can refer to answers and it's talking about this list of possible answers. This one is the main bit of the code. This is the bit that's doing kind of quite a lot of work today. This responds to a button press. So this is responding to an event, button press, when 8 ball button is clicked. At the moment it's performing 2 actions. Those 2 actions are that it sets the Magic 8 Ball button image, so that's the image on the button, to the underside Magic 8 Ball 2, and it then starts the timer which will count for 2 seconds and then flip the image back again. So at the moment it's not even displaying a message. All it's doing is it's changing the image for 2 seconds, changing it back again. And finally, this bit of code we are not going to touch today. It's just been set up to make this bit work nicely. All this does is when the timer is started here, this timer after 2 seconds it changes the picture back to 1, switches the timer off, and it changes any text on the button to blank, so it gets rid of the previous message. So this is all kind of set up ready to work. Let's have a look at what this app looks like when it runs. So for that we're going to need to either use an emulator or a real device. Now in this instance I'm going to use an emulator so I can show you on screen. So I've got AI Starter running on my computer. I'm going to connect to the emulator. Now what this will do is it will launch Virtual Phone on my computer where I can test apps on. This takes a little while to load, so you have to be quite patient. So whilst that's loading, this Virtual Phone has a few simple buttons. So we've got a few software buttons here to replicate buttons you might find on a phone. We've got camera, volume down, volume up and power. We've got calls. We can't obviously actually call anybody, it's not a real phone. This does have a few limitations. We can't shake this phone. We can't tip it from side to side. We can't use any of those physical sensors that a real device might have. But it's a good device for testing. So the app companion is just starting up. It's about to start loading my blocks. So here comes the app. It downloads. Here we go. So there's our app. Now what we can do is if we just test our app, if we click it, we can see the picture changes to the underside of the ball. 2 seconds later it changes back So that's quite reliably working now. So our app works now. Let's see if we can make it so that it displays a message when the user clicks the button. So let's go back to our script here where the user clicks the button. What we're going to do is we want to change something about the button itself. And if we go down here, we want to change, so set the text in the button. So we are going to put it in the middle here. So it's going to change the background picture, change the text, and then it's going to enable the timer. And all we're going to want to do is we want it to select one item from this list, and we want to do it randomly. So if we go into our lists menu, at the top, or near the top, we have a pick random item. And then all we want to do is give it a list. Now we could give it this list every time, or we could give it this variable name, global answers. So what this will do is it will go and fetch this list, global answers. It will pick a random item from it and change the 8-ball button text to that. Now if I go and find my Magic 8-ball phone, which is still running the emulator, if I now try this, this code should now be live. Definitely not. So I could ask the question, is my app successful? Apparently not. But we can keep trying this, and we'll hopefully get some other answers other than definitely not. There we go, we've got one. So there we are, that bit of our app is now working. The next thing we want to do is to add some sound. So what we can do here, we've added this text-to-speak object. Now text-to-speak is really quite a cool little thing that Google have added to App Inventor. If we snap this in here, so what we've done there is we've gone to text-to-speech and we've said we want to speak a message. Whatever message we give it here, it will speak it out loud. So if I were to go and grab this box and I was just to put hello, then it would say hello. Clearly we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to make it say one of these things up here. So I'm going to take this bit of code, duplicate it, and snap it on there. In theory that should do what I want. It should display a random answer on my text, and a random answer should be read out loud. So let's go over to my phone and test that out now.
Yes, certainly.
So we've got yes, certainly there.
Definitely not.
Oh, that's not quite right.
Definitely not.
Something's not quite
Definitely
right there.
not.
We're getting different text of the speech on some occasions.
Definitely not.
Sometimes it matches.
Yes, certainly.
Other times it doesn't. So we're getting some odd behaviour from our app. We think, as the programmers, that it should be choosing a random item from this list, it should be displaying the text and reading the message out. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we get different text to the voice that's being spoken. Now to investigate this, we need to look at this bit of code that we've written here. The problem is not anything with our code itself, but our understanding of the problem. This is what we call a logical error. So what's happening here is that at this point here, it goes away and it picks a random answer. But it does exactly the same thing here. It's doing it twice. Sometimes it will be the same, sometimes it will be different. So what we want to do instead is we're going to make use of a variable. So we're going to make the choice once, store the answer in a variable, and use that variable to do our text and our speech. So we're going to have to dismantle a little bit of code here. We're still going to use this bit here, but we're going to do something else with it first. We're going to go to variables, and we only want this variable to exist for this little bit of code. We don't want anyone else to see this or any other piece of code, so we're just going to grab this local variable thing, and we're going to snap it in here. We're going to put those two inside. Doesn't matter too much, but these two are going to use this variable. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say in here that I would like to pick a random item from my global answer list. I'm going to put the answer, let's change this, I'm going to put it in a new variable called answer, and then I'm going to set my text to whatever answer is, and I'm going to set my speaking message to whatever answer is. And now hopefully if we get my phone back,
Definitely not.
we should get
Definitely not.
a nice reliable app that always gives
Definitely
the right
not.
speech with the right words.
Definitely not.
One final thing which as a programmer we need to be trying to do as much as possible is documenting. Now in your code you've got some comments that I've begun. What you ought to do now is, as we've changed the function of this, we should try and describe using comments what this is doing. So could you now add some comments to this block to explain some of these other steps that are happening now in this block of code. So that's your first app. Now all that's left to do is to extend it, to change it, develop it. Some simple things that we could do might include adding to this list of answers. This is a fairly boring list at present. We could change the way the app works. So instead of pushing a button, we could use an accelerometer sensor which senses shaking or movement, so you could shake the phone to make it work. We might also want to fix a screen issue. At the present, our app rotates as we turn the screen. We might want to fix it in portrait mode. And there are many other things we could do to improve our app. So that's our first app, our Magic 8 Ball app, in which we've looked at events, actions, we've talked about variables and lists. We've also talked a little about errors and given one example of an error, a logical error. Now that you've completed that app, how about trying some of the extension activities such as the soundboard app?